So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome all councillors and members of the public to the latest meeting of North Northamptonshire's Executive, including those watching online via the live stream on YouTube. Members are reminded to keep your microphones muted, your laptops on silent and your phones. Unless invited to speak, please keep your microphones muted as well. Before we go on to the main proceedings of today's meeting, I'm sure we've all seen the appalling footage on the news over the last few days, the barbaric and horrific attacks on Israel. I'd like to ask you to join me in a minute's silence to honour and remember the victims of the appalling atrocities that have taken place in Israel and the innocent lives that have been lost as part of this conflict so far. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on with the agenda, apologies for absences. Are there any apologies to be recorded?
Thank you very much, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Helen Howell, Deputy Leader, Adele Wiley, Monitoring Officer, and Janice Scott, Section 151 Officer.
Okay. Any other apologies from councillors? No. Thank you. So we move on to item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of September. The minutes are on page 5 to 28 of your agenda packs. Are there any comments in respect to their accuracy? No. Please can I have a mover to approve the minutes and a seconder? A show of hands in favour, please. Thank you. So item 3, members' declarations of interests. Are there any declarations of interest from members? No. Okay. Item 4, notifications of requests to address the meeting. There are various members here down to requests to address the meeting. I will obviously invite you up as and when that point is being discussed. So we move on to item agenda 5, performance indicator report. I'd like to invite Councillor Valerie Anslow to address the meeting. Councillor Anslow, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. I'd like to refer to page 41 in the report, which is the BBF 33. It talks about 133 children missing in education, which I'm glad is an improvement on the 165 in July, the majority of whom were missing for 0 to 3 months. However, 15% or 19 children have missed 3 to 6 months. This is complex, especially when parental choice comes into the equation. But what concerns me are those missing through absenteeism. This is not recorded anywhere. And as corporate parents, when children are in school, we should be monitoring this issue, supporting schools as they tackle the problem of persistent and severe absenteeism, as the effect on the child's life chances will be substantial. We've got attendance officers who monitor the numbers, and we as councillors could do with that information. It was distressing to read the report from the inquest into the suicide of a 13-year-old child who was school phobic. and it does worry. And as counsellors and as corporate parents, we would want to monitor why children are absent from school, the reasons, and what we can perhaps put in place in schools to support those parents and those children through their difficult time. I think we need to recognise that although COVID is now lived with, the trauma of COVID on children and parents has had a profound impact on the absenteeism level in schools. And we can't just ignore this. So my question is, can we be given those numbers on absenteeism within the schools and some suggestions of how we can go forward? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anslow. I know you say your question is, there's no option for you to ask a question, it's merely to make a statement. Thank you. I'd like to invite Councillor Bunday to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure the colleagues around this table will want to comment on their own performance indicators within the areas of their responsibility. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the Council's performance across a range of indicators as measured by the Council's suite of key performance indicators for period 5, that's August 2023. The key performance indicators reported this month are set out in the appendix within this report. Excuse me. As I reported last month, 4 quarterly indicators were missing due to a software upgrade, and for completeness, these have been reported within this report. Of these, 2 are moving in a positive direction and 2 are well within tolerance. In spite of the cost of living crisis, both council tax and business rates collections remain strong. Colleagues will continue to monitor the situation closely over the coming months. In this period, of those KPIs with a target set, 18 indicators are on or exceeding target, 8 indicators are within tolerance of target, 7 indicators are performing below target. For those KPIs where the polarity of the direction of travel has been determined, performance has improved for 22 indicators and deteriorated in 11 indicators. 17 of the 23 tracking measures have polarity determined. 10 of these have moved in a positive direction, 4 have stayed the same or deteriorated only marginally, and a further 3 have deteriorated by more than 5%. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation at paragraph 3.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bunday, for that. Members, would you like to comment on areas of interest to yourselves? So, Councillor Backenbury.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Yes, once again, I welcome this, the indicators in this report because it does provide a valuable snapshot of where the Council is in so many key areas. I note and am pleased to see the reasonably good figures on page 12 of the paper agenda regarding the planning service. Shows, you know, performance is somewhat above target in most areas, but there's still a lot of work to do, and obviously the ongoing review of planning services, which is still underway, is taking all these indicators into consideration. So, as I say, I do congratulate everybody on putting these statistics together because they are an extremely valuable way of finding out what's going on in our respective areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Leader. Just to, Councillor Anslow, you're absolutely right to raise the point about absent in education, and it is something we are looking at. Some of the children are very complex cases in why they are missing. I mean, it could be that they have moved abroad or to another country or elsewhere, and then some of the schools are taking a while to come back with the data. Nevertheless, you know, the figure is dropping, and we hope to see that dropping even further. And absolutely, absenteeism, full stop, in education is being looked into, and it is going to appear in the next pack as a KPI. It went through scrutiny last week or the week before. Tuesday of this week. So that's positive to look at that, so you will absolutely have those figures. And you're quite right to highlight the sad case of the young child, and we wouldn't want to see that happen again. So we will do everything possible to look at why and how we can support children that are in those situations. The other KPI that I wanted to highlight was to do with cases that the Children's Trust are looking at. You will see that it's actually a very low figure. So I have inquired with the Children's Trust as to why this is, and there isn't an action plan put in place to increase this, but they wanted to assure you that it doesn't mean that the children's protection is not being supported. It's just taking currently longer, and a lot of that is down to staffing issues within the Trust. But there is a plan in place, and we hope to see that increase on the next time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. No more comments? Okay, so if Councillor Bundy would like just to move the report.
Yeah, happy to move it.
And Councillor Harrison, are you seconding? Yep. Thank you very much. So can we have a show of hands in favours, please? Unanimous, Chair. Thank you very much. Okay, so we move on to item 6, the North Northamptonshire Future Vision Big 50 Progress Update. So I'd like to invite Councillor Dorothy Maxwell to address the meeting. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Maxwell, to speak.
Good morning. Big 50. I went to this conference by mistake, but I was allowed to stay. How interesting it was looking at 50 years' time. I'm not sure how many people around here, except in my case, my grandchildren. I would like to say more about councillors would like to have come to attended this. Only a certain few did. We all have something to say about how NNC should be more forward to make better in our lives. Jobs, education, housing, infrastructure matter. But what are we making sure that this will happen in the future? We have got the stats of who is employed, what education they need, and are we going to match housing to this? The person who recorded this speech, I think it was Japan, seemed to understand a pound place, prosperity, positivity. The items which were discussed was health, transport, communication, education, skills, environment and jobs. It is important to think about the future and what this means. Planning now makes sure that the map sets out in NNC's future. Leaving it would be unacceptable. I do hope we can go to the next meeting and be part of the discussions which will take place. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. I'd like to invite Councillor Matt Keane to speak. Councillor Keane, you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this. Prior to Veston Day, each town had a vision for the future, and it's important that we revitalise this as our new authority. It's important that our new local government infrastructure recognises our ageing population, planning and healthcare, and future-proofing of jobs. Nothing looks more out of date than yesterday's view of the future. So I'm going to be 82 in 50 years' time, so I'm hopefully be able to see the great things that this report is highlighting. It's vital that we look at growing local businesses and match the skills that are needed. But I'd like to see a bit more in this about AI and green energy, the things that are affecting us in the future. I look forward to attending the next event in February 24, but I just want to know how are we going to be accountable for the actions that are needed in this report. We see things like HS2 and the Kettering General Hospital rebuild, and I just don't want to see things like shelved when the time comes to do. It's all very well talking, but how are we going to be held accountable for what this report gives? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keane. I'd like to invite Councillor Valerie Anslow to address the meeting, a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you. Feedback from the Big 50 conference, and I'll be in my 90s, would you believe it, by the time that happens, because it's in 2050. I hope I'm still around to see it. But anyway, 411 identifies the areas which over half the delegates identified as important. I wonder if the omittance of housing from that list was because the delegates were in secure housing and were homeowners themselves. If you're in that fortunate position, then housing doesn't necessarily come top of your agenda. It's only when it becomes personal and you may have a family member who is homeless. 413 does not mention housing either, when homes underpin everything in the list. Before 2050 and the grand vision that we've put forward, or is being put forward, that we will be proud of North Northants. I'm already proud of North Northants. I love living here. But we want it to be prosperous. We want our residents to be proactive in solving issues. But we also want a long-term strategy for housing, particularly social housing. For without decent homes, the rest will not happen. The jobs will not be there. The health and the well-being will not be there. 7.32 identifies 3 vision priorities, which are fine. You know, I'm all agree with those, but I would suggest a 4th, which recognises the need for secure, affordable homes. I know it's on the radar. I know it's being discussed. I know that at the next full council meeting, hopefully a motion will be passed agreeing that that's what we need. But as it is, good affordable houses are at the end of the list on page 98. And to me, that seems as though it shows where the priority is. And I would like to see housing further up that list. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anslow. So, without further ado, I'll introduce the report. So I'm pleased to present this report that provides an update on the work carried out on creating a vision for North Northamptonshire up to 2050, something we and our partners have referred to as the Big 50. The report is a follow-up to one that was considered back by the Executive in March earlier this year. The report committed to hold a Big 50 conference in July this year, and the conference was a big success that was held, not least because it had engagement from across political parties, the voluntary sector, partner agencies, the business community, education providers, developers, large and small retailers, and many more. Big 50 is a vision for the area, a vision anyone can deliver. The conference held in July aimed to further develop the Big 50 vision with a broad range of stakeholders as this report feeds back from the conference and presents an updated vision to the Executive today. I am also keen to highlight within the report the fantastic work of the Big 50 Steering Group. The Steering Group does an absolute vital job in helping oversee the development and the delivery of the Future Action Plan, ensuring broader ownership and navigation, both of which are critical to the vision's future success. The report recommends developing actions to help deliver the future vision and to ensure delivery on a short, medium and long-term timeframe. I cannot stress how important that is. We want the quick wins, but we also want to secure the vision for the long-term future. For the Big 50 to work, it needs to make traction now. And on this point, I'm keen to highlight some of the partners have grabbed the initiative already. Robin Webber-Jones, the principal of Tresham College, has already held a skills meeting and is arranging a conference in March 24 to look at the skills development in critical areas such as artificial intelligence. This is in addition to a further Big 50 conference being planned for early in February 24, which many of the conference attendees requested back at the meeting we had in July. I'm also sure you will agree this is an inspiring and bold vision, and I trust the Executive here today will join me in welcoming this report and its recommendations. So, members, would you like to make any comments on the report? David, Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I absolutely endorse the sentiments that you've just expressed. And in terms of placemaking, this is going to be such an important strand of all our policies and policies and placemaking ideas going forward. For example, the Big 50, the findings of the Big 50, which is very much a living document. So this will continue to be informed and will continue to develop. And those findings will very much be reflected in the production of the North Northamptonshire Strategic Local Plan, which a lot of work is going on at the moment. And that will try to ensure that people have got, as Councillor Ansell points out, housing, of course, and jobs and necessary infrastructure all brought forward as far as possible in conformity with one another. So I welcome that. I also welcome your remarks, Chair, for Mr. Webber-Jones at his skills meeting. Very inspiring. And again, that's the next generation. These are the people who are going to be affected by the Big 50 as it goes on. And there's some really good work going on in North Northamptonshire and elsewhere on this. And of course, in closing, Chair, we must welcome the recent opening of the Sixth Form College in Corby, which is going really well. So there's a lot of room for optimism here. And my thanks to everybody who's been involved in this, to the steering group, but also to all the many, many stakeholders in all various sectors who have come forward to contribute to this. We don't want this just to be a council-led vision. This is a vision which should be owned and celebrated by everybody who lives or works in North Northamptonshire. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenby. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I also really welcome this report. It's great to see the progress that has been made since the first Big 50 conference. I'd just like to point out that I think the Big 50 actually refers to 2050, not 50 years' time, so I don't think you have to wait quite as long as you were suggesting earlier on.
I was sparing blushes, Councillor Harrison.
But I do think, we do need to be absolutely thinking about the long term to 2050 and beyond, because the more we can influence the development and growth of North Northamptonshire, the better. And I think what's so brilliant about the Big 50 is that it's, we already have lots and lots of partnerships. We have lots of different forums in which we're working together with our partners. So, for example, if you think about the integrated care system, we're trying to make sure that the health and social care, the voluntary sector, communities are all coming together to deliver better health and well-being outcomes. And then we've got the anchor institutions which come together and work together. That's our universities, council, and so on. So we've got lots and lots of different forums. But I think that the Big 50 is probably the only one that really brings all of that together and allows us to say, together, what are we going to deliver for North Northamptonshire? And if you think about what the council's doing, at the last executive meeting, we presented the Greenway strategy. I think the Greenway strategy is a really long-term, well-thought-out piece of work. I think it fits right into what we want to deliver for the Big 50. Seeing what Tresham College is doing, really inspiring. So we just need to see more and more of our partners beginning to bring forward these plans, driving them forward, and that's why we need that next conference to make sure we keep up that pressure and keep the momentum going. But I think this is really, really important piece of work and very much welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. The first meeting, the Big 50, was excellent. There was a lot of energy in the room, excitement, people willing to actually get involved and talk to organisations they'd never talked to before. It's slightly annoying to get a comment about housing and everybody lives in houses, so have got their own homes. We had our social housing partners there to represent the housing, so housing is a consideration of Big 50. It's also nice to see that organisations who weren't at Big 50, who were missed off the invites and have now asked for it, such as Department of Work and Pensions, the job centres have now asked to come along, and as a consequence, are talking about doing some initiatives for the community in the levelling up areas to help them bring their employment higher. So it's all good. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Councillor Pentland.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to see the feedback coming back from that conference. As colleagues have said, it was a really good day. There were lots of conversations. I know on my table we had a vast range of people from across the community in different organisations, from health to housing to education, and it was great to hear their input into what they wanted to see as part of this. It's good to see the feedback as well later coming through here, and one of the key themes that I can pick up on from my area is the focus on looking after environment and the climate and making sure that we're keeping on track with that, and that is clearly important to the wider community. So I'll be pleased to see how this goes forward. This is, as we've said, it's not the council's vision, it's North Northamptonshire's vision, and it's great to see that everybody is contributing to that as they are.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penton. And thank you to all the exec members and members of the public and elected members that, you know, have spoke about this. I think what we do need to understand is this is not just, and many of you have said this, it's not a council vision. We have started this process to kick off something big within North Northamptonshire. And as Councillor Harrison has already articulated, you know, this is about bringing together all of the various parties, all of the interested parties that all have an ambition to make North Northamptonshire something special. Now, as a council, it's right that we kicked off that particular piece of work, but it's about getting other people involved. Robin from Tresham College, absolutely fantastic amount of energy and enthusiasm. He's done his skills thing. It's important that we have the young adults coming through college, and even older adults, you know, that want to retrain, but they're retraining for skills that are needed locally. So you know, the education is matching the need of the employment market. And housing is a major part of this, and one of the members, I can't remember which one it was, referred to it as Joe Savage from Greatwell Homes, is a very active part of this steering group, and has brought in so much enthusiasm and so many great ideas, and they've embraced the Big 50 vision within their organisation already, and have started to do a lot of community work projects off the back of this. So I'm absolutely pleased to see this gaining momentum like we wanted it to, and I very much welcome the support of the Labour opposition leader, Matt Keane, Councillor Keane, who was obviously a fundamental part of this as well, so certainly welcome that. So with that in mind and those few words that I've said, I'm happy to move this report. Can I look for someone to second the report, please? Thank you very much. Councillor Howes. So the recommendations are noted on page 48 of the agenda pact. They've been moved and second. Can we have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item 7, Northamptonshire Corporate Parenting Board Annual Report. I'd like to invite Councillor Maxwell to address the meeting. Councillor Maxwell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
The agenda report. Whilst I welcome this report, it still has a long way to go in improving its work with the most deprived children in North Northampton areas. The overspend this year and the lack of qualified social workers on page 136 shows a lot more must be done to improve standards. I welcome the 12 newly qualified social workers which started in May this year, and that 13 also are due to start or have started in September as a way forward. However, 25 social workers show why we have had problems in the past and why every child has been failed. This is the right step in the direction to making sure that every child counts, not just a certain few. All the children who find themselves homeless or looking for extra care must be never forgotten. We as a council should make sure that we improve It is not something that has just happened overnight, but over the last few years, we have not shown ourselves as effective as we should have been in this, and this has to change. I meet people most weeks who've had something to say about why we're failing them, and children, why. 25 social workers are now recruited this year. Why did this not happen before? Questions need to be answered. It is still not transparent what goes on in children's services and how they operate. It needs to be more transparent and openness. On the personal front, I've experienced this where no one is interested in what you did and when you left school or in the future. They expected you to do low-paid jobs. This has to change because at the end, homelessness does not mean no one cares. Too many children end up on the wrong side of the law. Every day, a child is in trouble with the law. And sadly, children get killed. We have to stop this and to make sure that we are meeting the needs of children, regardless of their background, in NNC. Let's hope the next report shows a massive improvement and not just over a few. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. I'd like to invite Councillor Edwards to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to, Councillor Maxwell, so the Corporate Parenting Board is for our looked after children. So it represents only literally the looked after children, not all children. In response to the 25 social workers being recruited, I mean, that could be through various different reasons. Some may have left and they've recruited them to replace that one. It's not 25 extra. It's 25 have been recruited or being recruited throughout. And the criminal justice part of it, there's some positive news coming from there. So absolutely we will look at that. But I actually think it's actually a real positive report that is coming from the Corporate Parenting Board. And I'd urge you and I'd welcome you, Councillor Maxwell, to come along to the Corporate Parenting Board. I'll put an open invite to you to come along, as do other councillors who come along and represent. And actually we scrutinise the figures that are produced through that. So I will send you a personal invite to come along and then you can see what the Corporate Parenting Board does. So this report is the Corporate Parenting Board report for 21-22. Now this is the last report as a joint authority. You'll know that we have now split the Corporate Parenting Board between the North and the West. So we just now have a solely North Corporate Parenting Board, which is very good because we focus on the children within the North and the West focus on the West. So this report highlights the activities that have been undertaken in the past year, and our strategies are we're all corporate parents, and we must remember this. And children, young people and families at the heart of all we do, in every decision we make and every action we take. At the meetings we look at statistics that come along. So we have a scorecard that comes every meeting that we have. A lot of that highlights the health issues, and we'll know, and I know Councillor Harrison will know that there are some figures that are very low on that, and that's what we're working on to make sure that dental appointments, hospital appointments, doctor's appointments for our looked after children are absolutely top of our priority list. We also interact with the young people that they affect. So we have we had two young people that sit on the board. Our new board, that's what we're looking at, and how we can encourage young people to come along and give us their stories and give us their reactions in life. It is a board that is proactive. So we had 4 councillors from each authority, and each meeting we had a vision of what we'd like to look at. So our last meeting looked after children, unaccompanied children that arrived in the UK. And that was really, really positive, because actually a lot of that is things that may be reported in the press, which is inaccurate. And so it was really positive on what we are doing to support those children, and more importantly, what our legal obligations are within that as well. So this is the report. I'm sure you've all read it. It's a very good report. I just highlight the 4 priorities. So it's live safe, be safe, fulfill potential, develop resilience, and enjoy good health and well-being. And I recommend this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Members, have you got anything to comment in relation to this report? No. Oh, Councillor Brackenbury.
Just very quickly, I very much welcome the report. I welcome the amount of work that's gone into it. I look forward to receiving the separate North Corporate Parenting Board report next year. But in the meantime, I do welcome the excellent communications and the fact that the voices of young people were central to the compilation and the findings of this report. So it's all good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. So, Councillor Edwards, would you like to move that report? Absolutely. Thank you. Can I look for a seconder, please? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 108 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 8, local electric vehicle infrastructure, lever funding. I'd like to invite Councillor Maxwell to address the meeting. You don't want to? Okay, not a problem. I'd like to invite Councillor Matt Keane then to address the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. So it's really important that we keep up with the demand for electric vehicles, and it's really important that we be in Trench 1 to make sure that we don't have an electric vehicle charging desert in this area. In regards to the provider for our public electricity charge points, the solution to soaring petrol and diesel costs, a lot of people are looking at switching to electric vehicles. But I noticed that we're only going to go with one provider. So how can we make sure that we are charging a fair price to our residents? If we stick to one provider, how can we make sure that we're going to have control over the tariff? So what power would we have if they start charging unrealistic pricing, if that was the case? Lots of modern estates have dreadful car parking options, so how can we ensure we balance meeting demand but having suitable places, and how would we consult with the areas where we're planning to put these things in? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keane. I'd like to invite Councillor Binley now to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Keane, for those comments. I do believe that I will cover your points in the presentation. Without further ado, Chair, so this report is to outline the details of the local electric vehicle infrastructure funding, known as LEVI capital funding, which has provisionally been awarded by the government to North Northamptonshire Council. The report is also to agree the next stages. The provisional funding that has been awarded is £2,895,000. This is for the North Northamptonshire electric vehicle infrastructure, which is primarily aimed at residents who do not have access to off-street parking. Funding has been awarded due to us submitting an expression of interest. We now must submit a business case before the 30th of November to qualify for the funding, but this is subject to approval, and if this is approved, will result in a payment of 90% of the total awarded funding. With the sale of new combustion engine vehicles due to be banned by 2035, we have drafted our own electric vehicle infrastructure strategy, for which the consultation on this closed only yesterday. The strategy sets out a blueprint which enables us and other stakeholders to develop an EV infrastructure, and also proposes the target of 250 public EV charging points by March 2025. The Levi funding is awarded, if the Levi funding is awarded, it will help to support the delivery of that strategy, and we will then be able to procure and appoint a supplier to supply, install, operate and maintain the EV charging points. Please note, though, that a successful supplier will be responsible for providing electricity, repairs, maintenance and all ongoing costs. Once that procurement process has been completed, if approved by the government, it will result in the final 10% of that funding being paid to us. 5.2 of the report explains we have been allocated Levi capability revenue funding, which helps to increase internal resources for planning and delivery of the strategy. So far, we have received £77,220, with a further payment of £175,890 expected in the next financial year, and another payment of £175,890 in the following year. Approval of the recommendations does enable us to implement the EV infrastructure strategy after consideration of the consultation responses, for which closed yesterday, and then make any subsequent amendments. Just under 1 in 5 new car sales are EVs. If you include the hybrid vehicles, it's closer to 1 in 4. Currently, there are around 900,000 fully electric vehicles on the UK roads, according to statistics. There are currently 139 publicly available EV chargers in Northamptonshire. The number of devices per 100,000 people is, however, below the UK average. 4.5 of the report explains one of the projects on installing EV chargers across Northamptonshire to date. This is due to complete by the summer of 2024. The proposal to approach the government for tranche 1 of the Levi funding was put to the Sustainable Communities EAP in April and was supported. The draft electric vehicle infrastructure is due to be considered by the Place and Environment Scrutiny Committee at the end of this month. 7.9 of the report lists some of the environmental benefits, but these are also contained throughout the document, as you would imagine. Chair, I'm really pleased to see this paper being brought forward, and I have to thank the government for its support in helping to fund the delivery of this vital infrastructure within Northamptonshire, helping to future-proof it for our residents' futures. The UK is ahead of the global curve with electrification, only falling short of the largest EV market, which is actually China. So, on that basis, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations made out in section 3.1, 1 to 6, for the reasons set out in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley, and I wholly support this paper coming forward today myself. I have seen firsthand across Northamptonshire as I get out and about, the charges that we currently have are always utilised, and it's about, thanking the team as well, for Graham Kane and his team for diligently going about the business to get this funding in, and to look at where we place these chargers for best results for our residents to charge their vehicles that don't have access to chargers at home. You are right to say that EVs are the way forward, and this, it seems to be very clear. The more and more of them on the roads, and I absolutely welcome the ability for people that can't get an electric car because they don't have the facility to have a charge box, so they now can actually enter into that market. So I absolutely support this paper. Councillor Pentland.
Thank you, Chair. Like you, I really welcome this coming forward. It's fantastic that we've got this opportunity for funding locally. The strategy that we've got in front of us, I think, really focuses on the areas that it should be, and that is supporting people who don't have off-street parking to enable them to go on that journey to become greener. by purchasing an electric vehicle. So making sure that we make it convenient and affordable for people is really important as part of this. I know that when it came before the Sustainable Communities EAP a few months ago, they were very supportive of this too, and also provided useful feedback around accessibility, etc., which are all really important considerations as part of this. So I look forward to seeing how this progresses. I know that we are getting more and more on-street charging points available across our towns. I know, for example, in Higham Ferrers, we've got new ones. So seeing that network expand and become more and more reliable and accessible will be really pleasing to see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pentland. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously I also welcome this. Anything we can do to improve the air quality on our streets is really important for the health and well-being of residents in North Northamptonshire. Without the EV charging points, as others have already said, it makes it very hard for some people to then go and purchase an electric vehicle. So this is really important for encouraging that and making it possible. So, you know, again, from an environmental point of view, from a health and well-being point of view, but also for making sure that North Northamptonshire is a place that is keeping up with the times, is modern and is efficient, is able to encourage people to people want to live and work here because we have the infrastructure that enables that. It ties in again with things like the Big 50. I think it's really important, and any chance we get to be applying for these funds, getting these funds, and then delivering, you know, is absolutely to be welcomed.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Howells.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Like my colleagues, I also support this. I think Councillor Bentley knows probably what I'm about to say. It's just in really relation to the consultation aspect of what we're going to do. That has been the pinch point really in the past in regards to installation of electric charging points. I think where we're at the moment, I mean, eventually, if we look down the line, these things are going to be everywhere. But at the moment, whilst we still have most people with combustion cars on the road, we just need to be mindful of where these are getting installed, because that can, in certain cases, cause disruption, depending on where we're installing them. And it sometimes feels that the objective is to just get them installed, rather than taking that extra time to make sure we're putting them at the moment where they are in the right place. As I say, I can see a future where they'll literally be everywhere. So wherever you pull up, there'll probably be one very close for you to plug into when we get to saturation point. But yeah, that's it really. Overall, the paper's excellent, and yeah, let's keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howells. I'm not sure we're going to see them all over the place, because I think what will happen eventually, they will go to an induction process where you just drive over a bit of tarmac and it will charge. But that's for the future, tomorrow's world and all of that. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fully support the proposal. Put a plea in for the villages, that we start looking at the villages. I know we have to some point, but the villages have got their own challenges of space. A lot of them haven't got footpaths outside their houses, never mind a garden or a driveway. So we need to look at the challenges. One suggestion I would make is we work with more of the third parties who've got car parks or space available, so village halls, community centres, to start encouraging those to put charging points in. As an example, I've bought 3 new vans this year, all of them diesel, because all of the people who've got them as my employees, none of them have got off-street parking, so they can't charge them. And out of the 60 establishments we service, none of them have got charging points either on site or within 300-400 yards of them. So we can't use electric vehicles at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. Back to you, Councillor Binley, just to wrap up on some of those comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on one of the points from Councillor Keane earlier that I didn't get to cover off, is about the tariff information. It is actually contained within the report under the appendix, which is about the business case. There's a whole section there under tariff administration which explains there will be an agreed ceiling with the supplier, and that if the supplier exceeds the ceiling in a given period, a clawback clause would apply to that period, so that there is protection built in there. That's one of the considerations that we've absolutely have had as part of that business case moving forward. Because of course we are conscious of rising energy prices, and in fact there is another thing in there in the fact that the energy must come from renewable sources as well, for obvious reasons, otherwise it's self-defeating. Just to pick up on some of the points, and thank you very much for the welcome comments made. Councillor Howes, you do raise a valid point. It is a very emotive subject, as we know, when it comes to things such as planning, that anybody losing parking spaces along the street, they do feel very passionately about this. But of course, what we are looking at is about getting that balance right, and that balance between building that infrastructure and future-proofing Northamptonshire. As I said, we are below the national average for the number of EVs per 100,000 population. And we want to make sure that we are not a left-behind area in that regards. As Councillor Harrison rightly mentions, we want Northamptonshire to be an attractive place, not only for individuals to move here, but also for industry as well. And moving on to Councillor Rowley and your point, as you've said there, you've got staff members, you would have looked at electric vehicles, but unfortunately, those members of staff, they haven't got any off-street parking. And that is exactly what this funding is for, and that is exactly why we are putting this strategy in place. As we know, we've got a lot of towns and villages that do not have off-street parking for the residents. But we've got to get that balance right, going back to Councillor House's point. And, we are a listening council. We have taken on some feedback with regards to the consultation process for the selecting prospective sites for installing electric vehicle charging points. And as a result, we have modified that process to increase resident engagement, to increase engagement with local ward councillors, but also with town and parish councils. So we are providing as much information as possible and encouraging people to engage with the process as early on as possible. There is a section in the report that does describe the fact that you can go onto the website and you can suggest locations. That is what we want. We want that public engagement. So with that, Chair, I'll go back to the fact that I move the report.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Binley. So Councillor Binley has clearly moved that report. Can I look for someone to second that? Councillor Rowley, thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 146 and 147 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Unanimous, Chair. Great, thank you. So we're moving on to item agenda 9, North Hampshire Council's Development Services and Regulatory Service Case Management System, CMS replacement. I'd like to invite Councillor Keane to address the meeting. Councillor Keane, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I've implemented these systems before in my job, so I know how essential it is that we have a fit-for-purpose, future-proof system. I've had many customer service horror stories from residents, but one big benefit of implementing one system is that we could do root cause analysis and we can be able to do a bit more, pull some of the data up to manage to find out where some of these complaints are coming from and be able to use things like the root cause analysis to prevent them occurring in the future. But I would like to say, would the preferred option that we're going with give us the opportunity to future-proof these systems, or are we missing an opportunity to completely switch to a new supplier which can do everything that we want it to do? So how can we make sure that we recognise in procurement the future opportunities that we can have from a case management system to make sure that we're working smarter and not harder? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keane. I'm sure Councillor Brackenbury will wrap up.
Sorry, just one more point. And how are we going to implement the testing beforehand to make sure it's a smooth process?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Keane. I'm sure Councillor Brackenbury will wrap that up in his executive report. On that, Councillor Brackenbury, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Keane, for your supportive comments. And you're absolutely right that we do actually have to move to a single case management system, which will make life so much easier, both in terms of the actual management of cases and resourcing of the information required, but also in terms of the management statistics and feedback that we'll be getting back. So I do appreciate your comments on that. And to introduce the report, as Councillor Keane's pointed out, we currently have 7 legacy case management systems covering development control, development services and regulatory service in North Northamptonshire. All of these systems, their licences are expiring on the 31st of March 2024, and we're unable to extend them. This gives us an opportunity to move to a single case management system covering both areas. This, of course, as I think Councillor Keane acknowledges, will enable us to have a single system which covers these areas, a single system that is available to officers, and a single system which is available to access information and data in the areas that we're talking about. It is proposed at 2.6 to procure a single cloud-hosted IDOCS solution and to have that contract in place by March 31st, 2024. Councillor Keane's absolutely right about testing and getting it sorted out, and the implementation will be taking place over a phased period over the following 18 to 24 months after the 31st of March. Naturally, as part of the transformation of North Northamptonshire Council from the previous legacy arrangements, this does come at a cost, and you will notice that there is a recommendation that we approve use of transformation reserves, which are specifically set aside for the cost of transformation to fund the implementation of up to £600,000. It will in fact generate, we estimate it will generate revenue savings of just over £40,000 having the one system. Obviously there are vast economies of operation in doing this, and so there'll be about a £40,000 saving which will be factored into the ongoing medium-term financial plan. So it's a good news story, because of course what is not factored in to the actual pounds, shillings and pence I've been speaking about is the fact that it will be more efficient for our officers. Now, in both areas of growth and regeneration, in development management and of course in regulatory services, we've got a lot of pressure on officers to do what they have to do and to get the necessary data accurately and quickly. And at the moment, they're having to interrogate they're having to interrogate 7 different systems to get this information. When we have got one complete, all-embracing system, it'll make life a great deal easier for our officers, which will in turn enable us to provide a much better service in the regulatory services area and, of course, in our planning service. So it's very much to be recommended. Therefore, Chair, I recommend at 3.1 that we approve commencement of a procurement process via the Crown Commercial Services Vertical Application Framework to purchase and implement a single cloud-hosted IDOCS case management system, to recommend to full council, because of course it's over the £500,000 threshold, the approval of the use of transformation reserves to fund the one-off implementation costs of up to £600,000, to approve the inclusion of the ongoing annual revenue savings of £40,400 into the medium-term financial plan, and to delegate authority to myself in consultation with the Executive Member of Place and Economy and the Chief Information Officer, we must not forget, to take any further decisions or actions required to conclude the procurement process. And I move that recommendation for the reasons at 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Now, I mean, we often tote the phrase an employer of choice as a council. It's something we all use across the benches and so on in this organisation. But that needs to be something with substance, and it's things like this transformational type of piece of software that will make our staff, give our staff the right tools to do the job. It will empower them to be able to be more efficient in what they do. So it's about bringing the tools to the organisation that can really make it work smoothly across our various areas. So I absolutely endorse this paper and welcome the recommendations. Executive, any other comments? Councillor Binley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just really want to echo what you've just said. I think this is a really important paper coming forward. I'm really keen to see this happen. It makes absolute sense to have a one-stop shop, which is exactly what we're talking about, and getting rid of those 7 systems, which must be absolutely mind-boggling to use and get your head around. And I'm sure it's, as you pointed out, Chair, it's probably affected some of our staff and their mental well-being. So I think it's great that we are looking at that, and shows, as you absolutely rightly say, that we are a forward-thinking council and thinking about our staff and making their lives at work so that they're able to work more efficiently. And that is exactly what this will do. And that, as a result, will have a knock-on effect to our residents in Northamptonshire and make the planning application process and inquiries so much easier for them and so much more streamlined. So that the benefits are absolutely huge to this. So I really, really welcome this paper.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. So, Councillor Brackenbury, if I just come to you to quickly wrap up, and I know you've already welcomed the report and have moved.
No, thank you, Chair. I have indeed. Just one thing I would like to say. I forgot to answer Councillor Keane's point about making alternative procurement possibilities. It was looked into, Councillor Keane, but we were reluctant to enter multiple procurement exercises, and we're up against a timeline. These contracts expire March 2024. So it was considered that we would probably be having a higher cost of migration, and the actual delivery of the new system would be delayed. So we were not really wanting to go down that route, but I do think you deserve an answer on that. So with that proviso, Chair, thank Councillor Binley for his comments, and yours as well, because you're right, it is an extremely important paper. It's an internal systems piece of change. It's not sort of, but it's so important for what we are trying to do and for the service that we intend to deliver in both these vital areas. So thank you for your comments, and I continue to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. Can I look for someone to second that? Councillor Binley, thank you very much. So the recommendations are on page 162 and 163 of your agenda packs. It's been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item 10, procurement of a heating contractor for housing stock. I would like to invite Councillor Buckingham to address the meeting. Councillor Buckingham, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. There were a couple of things that I would have liked to say on this item. The first one is around growing our own skills in this area. So I know that you're going out for procurement for that heating contract, and the reasons given for not using our own gas contractors that are in the team and not getting the skills. So like to find out a little bit more about apprenticeships within the gas service so that we can grow our own skills in the future. It's one of the things that you've talked about in terms of having the skills. The second part of what I'd like to talk about is it's not just about heating, but the fire and carbon dioxide monitors in the home also need to be looked at as part of a contract. And is it possible that, given our new regulatory obligations of going into every property, that we can somehow have a sort of risk register, so that when the contractor goes in, it looks at conditions like mould and or the upkeep of the property, because all that has an impact on costs for us as a council, as a landlord, in the future. So it's just making sure that we can expand the contract, use the contract in the best way we can to ensure that our tenants are safe, secure, warm, all the rest of it. By having a sort of, even if it's a tick box, to say a good or needs looking at or needs intervention on the checklist. If you understand what I mean, I'm hoping you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckingham. I'd like to now invite Councillor Binley to introduce the report.
I think it's me, Chair. It's me
It
now.
would be you, yes. Yes, it would be you. Sorry, Councillor Rowley. Old habits.
Yeah.
Councillor Binley used to
I know
have
he's a
your
lot more handsome,
portfolio.
but...
That's a matter of debate, but we won't go into that in this open forum.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the report outlines the various options that the team have looked at for the heating contracts within the Corby and Kettering areas. Corby historically use outside contractors. Kettering have done it in-house. The officers, I think, have quite rightly come up to the conclusion that we should split the workload of the heating systems, so break fix and the annual service is done by an outside organisation. They can provide all the spares and do the annual checks on a fixed price, we hope, and the new installs and voids can be handled by our in-house team. We then get the efficiencies of scales, no spare parts, etc., etc. To answer some of Councillor Buckingham's comments, we already have an apprentice in the Kettering group. They take 3 to 4 years to train, so it's difficult to ramp it up quickly, but it's something that we're always looking at. And the carbon monoxide is part of the annual check anyway. To get them to do other things and check the buildings is not really something that we can ask them to do. It'll just increase the costs exponentially. So I move the resolution as 3.1.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Sorry, Councillor Rowley. Any comments from other executive members on this report? Councillor Edwards.
Just actually on Councillor Buckingham's point about apprenticeships, and I think Councillor Rowley has said that they've got one already in Kettering. Great opportunity, as we've got a protected characteristic now for care and care leavers to get involved with that team and perhaps put that forward for that. So that's just a plug, but a great opportunity to be able to do that. Thank you.
Never one to miss a commercial opportunity, Mr. Councillor Edwards. Councillor, sorry, was there any other comments from any other members? Sorry, Councillor, the AD for Housing would like to.
Thank you. Just picking up Councillor Buckingham, your question around looking at other things when we're in properties. So I don't think it would be appropriate the gas contractor does it, but of all of our contractors, if there's a safeguarding issue, they will flag that back to us immediately. We are introducing the tenancy audit programme back again. So that would be a rolling programme to get into all of our properties. Obviously, we can't do them all in a year, so that's going to be a 3-year programme as opposed to the projected 5-year. And within that, there'll be an MOT. So it will look at health, it will look at income, it will look at the condition of the property, it will look at any welfare and any additional support that residents do need. But if there's any queries at the present time, if residents do let us know, we will look at those straight away for you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Binney.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, it would be remiss of me not to comment as you keep referring to me. So, yeah, I absolutely welcome this paper. I know, having in the past been briefed on it as to exactly why we're going down this route, and it is the right way. And you know, Councillor Buckingham, I acknowledge your comments with regards to apprenticeships and about things being in-house, and I know, having had the discussions way back when, that you know, we would very much as a council like to take things in-house wherever it's reasonably practicable, you know, but however, where there are things that are, for example, seasonal work, where you know it's a niche skill or niche market, then it's not necessarily going to be practical. And you know, I know from my own personal experience in an area like this, it is incredibly hard to recruit, to attract and to maintain staff in this kind of in this area when it comes to this kind of job. I also know that the team, Housing Repairs, they do work incredibly hard with their staff. You know, forgive the expression, but the team that they are lifers. You know, when they come here, they do stay for the whole of their career. It's absolutely brilliant. And I do also know that that team are very, very keen to do more with apprenticeships. And I'm sure they'll look at Councillor Edwards' suggestion now that he's managed to plug that as well. So, you know, I do think that we're doing all of these things, and I do think that this is the right way to go for now, and it may well be that moving on in the future that it's something whereby we do actually change and we say, okay, now it is the right time to take it in-house. However, for now, this is the right way forward, and Chair, I welcome this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bindley. Councillor Bindley, Rowley, would you like to just wrap up and...
Just quickly acknowledge what Councillor Edwards has said. We have had one brief conversation about apprenticeships and moving forward, but we'll move that even more. So on that, I move the recommendation of 3.1.
Thank you. Can I look for someone to second that? Councillor Bindley, thank you very much. Can I have a show of hands in favour? The recommendations are on page 183 of your... sorry, they're on page 172 of your agenda pack. A show of hands in favour, please.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we go on to item 11, Home to School Transport Dynamic Purchasing System, and I'd like to invite Councillor Bindley to introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, this is me. So this report is to seek approval to make a direct award to procure a standalone contract for NNC. This would be for the dynamic purchasing system known as ADAM, with effect from the 1st of April 2024. Just so you know, ADAM does not stand for anything. It is a very random name of a system. The current home to school transport dynamic purchasing system utilised for procurement of transport is provided by Access Group. This system is used by officers to allocate children to transportation, and the transport is delivered by external suppliers. These are pre-qualified external suppliers. As a council, we are required to arrange free, suitable home-to-school transport for those who qualify. We also provide transport for the Northamptonshire Children's Trust, which is paid for by the Trust. Our current arrangement is a shared dynamic purchasing system whereby WNC, that's West Northamptonshire Council, lead and manage the contract on behalf of NNC. The contract comes to an end on 31st of March 2024 with the option to extend for 2 further one-year periods. However, as this is a joint contract with WNC as the lead, it is only they who can extend the contract for those periods. It is not known at this stage whether WNC will seek to extend the contract or not. Our current use of the shared dynamic purchasing system has its challenges. One is the fact we have a shared procurement database with WNC, so it covers the whole of the county rather than bespoke to Northamptonshire. The system also currently aggregates invoicing from suppliers to reduce invoices. However, this means there is no way to split the invoices between NNC and WNC, so this has to be completed manually on a monthly basis. This is a legacy issue in the fact that this system was procured under the old Northamptonshire County Council. Therefore, by procuring a contract specifically for NNC, there are a number of advantages, such as having suppliers specifically for this area and not having to utilise officer time to disaggregate invoices every month. It will also give us better monitoring and forecasting, better monitoring of forecasting and spend for the service. By awarding the current supplier through a direct award under the YPO framework, which is the Yorkshire Purchasing Organisation, our staff will already be very familiar with the dynamic purchasing system, so there will be no need for additional training or downtime. This also allows adequate time to prepare and develop everything required to provide a smooth transition before the current contract expires. There are currently no other packages listed on the YPO that would meet NNC's needs, and alternatives via a full procurement exercise would take us well beyond the end of the contract. And no alternatives were identified where we carried out a soft procurement exercise, and that they weren't identified to meet our needs. It would also require extensive development and data migration were we to go to anybody else. 2.8 of the report explains in more detail about the YPO. The increased costs for a standalone service can be absorbed within the current budget, but there are actually also possible savings to be realised from utilising local service providers, and there are others as well listed in 7.1.3 of the report. The overall cost, if we were to award to Access Group over a 3-year period, would be a total of £153,395. Any increased use of local service providers would help reduce the carbon footprint. We also have the opportunity to operate our own contracts, and therefore we could include a maximum emissions target for supplier vehicles. I note just to note, there is a slightly incorrect title for our Executive Director of Place and Economy in 3.12 of the report, so I therefore just request that that be changed. I think it had got something about environment in there, and it's just a simple oversight. So therefore, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations made out in section 3.1 1 to 2 for the reasons set out in 3.2 of the report.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Binley. I'm opening up to debate on the floor from members. So, Councillor Bunday.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very much in agreement with this, as councillors around the room will realise the actual service was disaggregated October last year. And so procuring our own system will actually complete that process. And as far as I'm concerned, the sooner the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bunday. Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, I'm in support of this report. I don't think we can wait any longer, actually, for West Council to make a decision on whether they're going to extend or not. So now is the right time to take it back in-house, in our hands, for the Northampton children. Particularly like the way we can look at environmental issues, we can look at financing around it and bring it more localised. So I welcome this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And as with colleagues, I very much welcome the report. I welcome the careful analysis on the funding stream and the fact that it does give the potential for genuine savings, both in terms of monies and in terms of contributions to our carbon footprint. So that's very much to be welcomed. It all goes to a wider piece of transformation, as referenced by my paper some time ago, which is very satisfactory to see that, you know, the North Northamptonshire are gripping our transformation and trying to make ourselves as efficient and as efficient and as all-embracing as we can be.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. I'm just looking, there's no more hands. No. Okay, I'll come back to you, Councillor Binney, just to wrap up on that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Bunday, yeah, I completely agree with you. The sooner the better. And then moving on to Councillor Edwards, you're absolutely right. We can't wait any longer. We are stuck in limbo, and we do have to very much get on with this. And I think this is absolutely the right way to do it in any case. And I know that our team are very comfortable with this approach. And I think it will make us work a lot more efficiently. And thank you, Councillor Brackenbury, for your welcome comments as well. So with that, Chair, as I go back, I move the recommendations.
Fantastic. Can I look for someone to second that? Councillor Edwards. So that's been moved and seconded. The recommendations are on page 183. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Great. Thank you very much. We move on to item 12, Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman Annual Report 22-23. I'd like to invite Councillor Anslow to address the meeting for a maximum of 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. I remember as a newly elected NNC councillor attending a Zoom training when it was pointed out that councils need to get the basics right. That's the priority. And other stuff comes next. And those words are repeated on page 193, where it's 5.2. We know councils face huge challenges, so it's more important than ever for them to focus on getting the basics right in services for residents and handling complaints effectively. And then it goes on a bit later. Our latest statistics shed light on the harsh realities people across the country face in crucial aspects of their lives. Now, I understand that that is a comment about the national picture, but we can see that there are some things that need to be improved locally. In 5.3, just underneath that, it said the agreed timetables were not followed regarding 4 of the complaints received. The 12 upheld decisions cover education and housing. This is the basic stuff of which all else hinges. The payments made to complainants are small, insignificant, but reputational damage is priceless. I'm just wondering how the executive will respond to the Children's Trust following this report, which shows 22 complaints regarding education and children's services. We, again, as corporate parents, have little influence over the working of the SEND department of the Trust. The upheld complaints involved EHCPs and children with SEND. So I'm just interested to know how the executive member will respond to this report. And I'm sure Scott has got, Edwards will have some answers for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Anslow. Councillor Buckingham, would you like to address the meeting for a maximum of 3 minutes, please?
Good afternoon again. I'm not going to follow on from Councillor Anslow because I think she made her points really well. Just to note that the Local Government Social Care Ombudsman will be joining with the Housing Ombudsman, so we will be having a joint report in the future. I welcome this report, but also note that, you know, we've paid out compensation of £9.25 thousand just for 12 cases. So again, you know, it's all right compensating, but Councillor Ansrow's right, we need to get the basics right first time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. So I will move on to introduce this report, the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, which I now will refer to as the LGCO, which doesn't roll off the tongue any easier from now on, provides the final stage for complaints about councils and social care after the council's own complaints procedures have been completely exhausted. The LGSCO issues an annual letter to all councils individually that covers complaints that have been received relating to their own council and the outcome. Section 2 of the report sets out the overall numbers of the cases the LGSCO investigated last year. There were 64 in 22 to 23, up from 55 the year before. Section 2.2 of the report shows the changes by service area. And I think we need to sort of take that into context of the size of this organisation and compare that with some of our comparative organisations across the country. We don't fare too badly. However, we need to make sure that we can get ourselves down to the minimum amount. Councillor Anslow, this probably answers your question a little bit. The LGSO noted that nationally, complaints regarding children's services are showing the biggest increase. From 17% of cases he had received in 2014 is now up to 24% of cases. And that probably reflects the complexity of things that are happening in children's services across the country. The LGSCO also noted the council took longer than it would like to agree and implement his recommendations. Well, that's clearly disappointing, but we have already made changes to the way that complaints are handled, and we will redirect resource into this, or we did redirect resource into this area some months ago to sort of manage those issues. We've also increased corporate awareness of complaints data and have undertaken training, which has now had a positive impact on our performance data in the last 2 quarters. I look forward to seeing further improved performance throughout the year. Section 5.6 summarised individual cases that remedies that were agreed. I'm pleased to say that in all cases the council was able to resolve the matter fairly and recompense complainants properly and swiftly. Due to the nature and importance of this report, I felt it only right the report should be seen by scrutiny. I'm pleased to say this was presented to scrutiny earlier this week, where it passed without any comments. And I would like to thank the panel for taking the time to scrutinise the report's contents, as this executive really does welcome the scrutiny and the vital role and support that our well-functioning scrutiny and EAPs offer this council. Members can use the hyperlink at the end of the report to browse the cases in more detail, so you can get a granular detail of what the cases were about. And I look forward to next year's letter from the LGSCO to see how we have made differences in our residents' quality of life and outcomes. So, Executive, you asked to note this report. And I do move that report. Make that quite clear. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we don't want to see any complaints being escalated to this level, but that's probably you know, a little unrealistic in you know, when you given how many people we're delivering services to and the complexity of some of those services. But I would just like to make some comment on adult social care. The number of complaints that we received this year was up 2 to 8. If you look at some of our other comparable authorities, their levels of complaints are up to sort of levels of 23 and so on. So, you know, I think firstly that gives us, you know, a small level of assurance that we're managing complaints quite well, that only 8 of those ever have got to this level. And of those complaints, only 67% were upheld, which might sound high, but for a lot of authorities it was 100%. So again, I think, you know, hopefully what it shows is that we are managing complaints pretty well. We can always make improvements, but overall, I think there's some level of assurance there that we are, you know, through our stage 1 and 2 complaint system, we are mostly managing to deal with those and make sure that our residents are dealt with correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Just in response to the Education and Children's Services, yes, there has been an increase. I would just like to say comparatively, with the amount of actually things that come through that system, it is a very small number of figures. But nevertheless, you're absolutely right that the 22 complaints that went through were really a last resort that went through. But the amount of work that I know that the team has been putting in to dealing with questions and queries from families and from children beforehand, it has been imperative actually in reducing that number. So working with the families and working with the children has been really, really good. A lot of this does deal with EHCPs, and we are absolutely working on that to increase that figure. You'll know that from previous executives that the figure, A, for the number of EHCPs has skyrocketed, but also the number that we have processed has skyrocketed as well. So unfortunately, this has led to a slight increase in the number of complaints, but absolutely working on it.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And I think your remarks when you were introducing the report rather sum it up. You know, we are a very large organisation indeed, and it is, of course, regrettable that any complaint gets as far as the Ombudsman. But, you know, naturally some will. That does not mean we can be in any way complacent. We've got to keep investigating all these complaints. And I think it pays tribute, Chair, to the work that is done in resolving complaints and issues which come up in the various directorates before they ever get to the Ombudsman or to that stage. And I think that the vast majority of complaints and difficulties are in fact resolved quite satisfactorily before we get here. So yes, it's important that we have the Ombudsman as a backstop, and that the Ombudsman can and should investigate complaints when they're referred to them. But as I say, the vast majority of issues are mutually resolved without getting this far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. So I have recommended that report. Can I look for someone to second it? Councillor Harrison. Thank you very much. So the recommendations are on page 192 of your agenda packs. Have been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Brilliant. Okay, before we move on to item 13, I suggest we take a 10-minute comfort break. I love it when you get a Okay, thank you very much and welcome back to the meeting. So we move on to agenda item 13, Oakley Vale Infrastructure Works. I'd like to invite Councillor Binley to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to seek approval to progress the adoption of the roads and infrastructure in Oakley Vale Phase 5. The report explains the risks to the council and why the works are required to bring the roads up to the required standard to be adopted. It also details exactly how the works would be funded. Corby Borough Council entered into an infrastructure stakeholder agreement with various parties. As a result of the contractor going into administration, CBC entered into a supplemental agreement to fulfil the contractor's obligations. The contractor paid a work deposit which is held by a solicitor. The majority of the infrastructure works have now been completed. NNC now need to complete the works to the highway so that it can be adopted. We therefore intend to recover the full cost of the works by drawing down the £971,350 from the work deposit account held by the third-party solicitor, for this to be added to the capital programme. A number of remedial works need to be completed at the site, including repairs to the drainage and also a redesign of an existing roundabout. Once these works have been completed, a further inspection will be carried out to confirm if any other outstanding works remain before the final resurfacing of the roads. The current budget costs from our contractor is less than is currently held in the works deposit, and therefore there should be no financial impact to NNC. As part of the adoption process, a commuted sum will be paid for the future maintenance of the street lighting and the verges. This will also come from the works deposit. Therefore, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations set out in 3.1A to C of the report for the reasons set out in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Just looking to members, have you got any comments on this? No? Okay. So Councillor Binley has moved that report. Can I look for someone to second it, please? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded. The recommendations are on page 202 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 14, Partnership Governance Framework and Register of Significant Partnerships. And I would like to invite Councillor Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting.
Good day again. I just wanted to welcome the approach that has been taken on the partnership framework. It's a well-written document, and we welcome that clarity around partnerships and how it will be going forward. Would just like to say, just a little concern is who's invited to the party in terms of partnership. And I know it says significant partnerships, and I don't like these words that don't give a broader, a narrower focus, not a broader focus. But really welcome the report. Well written, well done.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. I would like to invite Councillor Bunday now to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. On the point about significant partnerships, that will probably change over different times depending on what the corporate plan and corporate objectives of this council is. The purpose of this report is to ask the executive to approve the partnership governance framework and to update on the progress of creating a register of significant partnerships. Northamptonshire Council has membership upon many partnerships with other public sector bodies as well as private and voluntary sectors. These partnerships support and deliver the Council's corporate strategy. To ensure that we maintain an overview of the effectiveness, efficiency and governance of these partnerships, a partnership governance framework has been drafted and a register of significant partnerships has been created. The proposed framework is at Appendix A and is offered as an aid to officers and elected members who are involved in these arrangements. I do not propose to read out verbatim section 4 of this report, but it sets out quite succinctly what it is intended to achieve. And as I say, the register of significant partners can be found at Appendix B. And with that, I'm happy to move the recommendation, paragraph 3, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bundy. Members, have you any comments in relation to this paper? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fully support it. Just to come back to Councillor Buckingham and what's a significant partnership, that's outlined on page 224.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rowley. Okay, so Councillor Bundy has seconded the report. Can I have, has moved the report. Can I look for someone to second the report, please? Councillor Edwards, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 210 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 15, National Non-Domestic Rates and Housing Benefit Overpayment Write-Offs. So I'd like to invite Councillor Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting, please.
Thank you. And again, with any write-off, I know the amount of work that's gone into this. Obviously, a lot of it is around the legacy sovereign councils and some of the problems in getting money in, although £402,000 it's eye-watering to think of it, but when spread across the districts, it's not as much as it seems, and it needs to be done. Write-offs need to happen when the amount of money spent chasing just a little bit happens. So more than welcome, understand the reasons for it in the report, and welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. I'd like to invite Councillor Bundy to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Although this authority has a duty to maximise revenue collection, there are from time to time circumstances that arise in which amounts due must for all practical and legal purposes be deemed uncollectible. Any account with an outstanding balance in excess of £25,000 cannot be written off without the approval of the Executive. Appendix A details the 8 accounts, 6 business rates accounts and 2 housing benefit overpayment accounts totalling £405,702.76 that are being recommended for write-off. Can I remind members that any discussion appertaining to the contents of Appendix A should not be entered into in open forum. These debts are considered to be unrecoverable despite numerous attempts. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to recommend the proposal at paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bundy. I'm going to open up to members' debate now. Councillor Brackenbury.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bundy, for introducing the report. Without going into any of the specifics in Appendix A, I would just point out the large amount of work that the council put into chasing these debts, and I think that pays some tribute to that team for the hard work they've put in. We're not writing off anything lightly, but there does come a point in this large multi-billion-pound organisation where some write-offs will be inevitable. So, thank you for the report, and yeah, I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. Sorry, Councillor Howes, did you have your hand up? Okay, so I thought you did. Okay, the report has been moved. Can I have someone second that report, please? Councillor Rowley, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 244 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Show of hand in favour, please. Thank you very much. Item 16, Capital Programme Update. And again, Councillor Buckingham, I invite you to come and speak.
And I'm going to waive my my ability to speak on this one. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Councillor Bundy, over to you to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. The first 2 items on this report have been discussed already this afternoon. Oakley Vale Corby Highway adoption and the North Northamptonshire electric vehicle infrastructure, which has suddenly become not a Levi but a Nevi. And the last item is a little bit of housekeeping. The DFE got their sums wrong, and we amended it already in the capital pool, but it hadn't been amended in the actual capital programme. So that's that one. And with that, Chair, I move the recommendations at paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. Members, is there any comments in relation to this paper? No, so we have a mover. Can I look for a seconder? Councillor Binley, thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 258 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Could I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So we move on to item 17, budget forecast as of 23-24 P5. Councillor Buckingham, I'd like to invite you to speak for another 3 minutes.
Thank you, and it won't take me that long. As with anything, the concerns I have are on the savings and whether or not we're moving the goalposts on some services, something that I need to find out a little bit more of. I understand that there is a lot of savings on some of the efficiencies brought in. It's just the services I need to find out about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. Councillor Dorothy Maxwell.
I would like to make a point about page 274, 5.15, 4. I would like to comment on the increased budget of 129k, which has been spent on education psychologist trainees, and anticipating an increase in bursaries payments, further bursary payments to this, resulting in further pressures of 48k, and this with other pressures of 81k, which relates to internal contributions between North and West. What happens when the education psychologist becomes qualified? Do they move on once they've been trained and paid for by us? It is a course that means that trainees should not leave NNC. How long would they be expected to work in NNC in future? And what are the plans for them? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Bunday, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Buckingham, if you want to address me on the moving of goalposts, I assure you that they're not being moved. They're not even being widened or heightened either. But I will happily answer your questions or certainly point you in the right direction. Education psychology is not my my forte, but like everything, I think what we need to do is make ourselves an employer of choice so that anybody who we train and educate wants to stay here after they've qualified. Moving on to the report, this provides commentary of the Council's forecast for the revenue outturn position 23-24 based on information available as at period 5, which is August 2023. The forecast position for each of the funds is as follows. General Fund, an overspend of £7.821 million. Housing Revenue Account, an overspend of £15,000. And Dedicated Schools Grant is forecast an overspend of £4.995 million. The monitoring report sets out the material financial issues identified since 2023-24's budget was set in February and is based on emerging data and represents the view of budget holders and assistant directors. We will continue to assess and refine the forecast of this on a regular basis using the latest intelligence available. And as you know, I report this back to this meeting once a month, and we also report it to scrutiny as well. As I have continued to remind members, uncertainty remains on the level of pay award to staff, and the NJC pay award, which is applicable to the majority of council staff, is yet to be agreed for 23-24. The forecast overspend of £7.821 million in the general fund is against a net budget of £337.072 million, and this is an adverse movement of £467,000 from period 4. The main movements between periods 4 and 5 are children's £282,000, adults £1.3 million, both adverse movements, public health and communities £360,000 favourable, place and economy £173,000 favourable movement, enabling £118,000 favourable movement, and corporate costs £464,000 favourable movement. As I've reminded members on many occasions, the biggest risk to this council is the challenge of our demand-led services. And although this issue is being reported by many councils around the country, this should not be an excuse to hide behind, while failing in good fiscal controls and management. The annual budget for the PPP Shore contract, which is for the provision of 6 residential care homes across Northamptonshire for the over 65s, is £9.8 million. There is a forecast pressure of £970,000 in relation to this contract. There is a forecast pressure of £2.25 million in relation to third-party payments in independent care spend, including residential and nursing care for both the over 65s and those aged 18 to 64. The main pressure, however, relates to the Children's Trust. Annually, the Trust meets with West and North to agree a contract sum for the coming year. The contract sum for the financial year 23-24 was set at £150.938 million, which amounts to an increase of £22.307 million from the previous year. The overspend for the year 22-23 amounted to £21.435 million, and the forecast overspend for the current financial year stands at £23.089 million. This council's share of the current overspend is £10.196 million. If these pressures are not mitigated, this will pose a significant financial risk to the council. The Trust are looking at potential mitigations, however. There is a risk that the position could worsen before the year end. A key risk is the delivery of efficiency savings of £7.632 million, which form part of the contract sum. At present, the Trust is forecasting £4.159 million of these savings are at risk of non-delivery. This could increase the overall pressure to £27.248 million. The details of the movements against budget is set out in the report and summarised in the table at paragraph 4.2 of the report. The Council's overall outturn forecast for the housing revenue account at period 5 is a forecast overspend of £15,000 against an approved budget of £38.752 million. The details of movement against budget are set out in the report at section 6. The Council's overall outturn forecast for the DSG as at period 5 is a forecast overspend of £4.955 million. As I reported last month, the higher needs block pressure is continuing to rise and is forecast at £5.655 million for the year. The remaining £700,000 from reserves has been used to mitigate this, leaving the forecast amount of £4.955 million, and further details can be found at section 7. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any comments to make in relation to the report before you? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. It's obviously important to comment on the fact that pressures are building within adult social services. And I think the reasons for that have been fairly well rehearsed with inflation affecting our PPP contracts, but more importantly, the increase in demand with a 15% increase in demand from our younger adults for services and a 25% increase in older adults, which is absolutely unprecedented. What I think is urgent now is for us to really understand that increase in demand, to understand whether it's a permanent increase in demand, because that's going to be vital in terms of budget setting for next year, which we're going into now, and you know, working out how we're going to manage that demand for the future, because that is sort of pretty mind-boggling increase in demand for services. So I just wanted to, you know, really put that out there, that it's not something that's going to be very easy to deal with, but it must be. We must understand it so we know what the next few years are going to look like.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. I'm just looking around the table. So there's no further comments on that. So, Executive, you've heard the report in front of you. Councillor Bunday has moved the report. Can I look for someone to second that report? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. So if you look at the agenda, you will see that the recommendations are set out on page 266 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. So urgent items of business. I confirm that I've not had any urgent items of business to be considered at this meeting. So that concludes the business on this agenda, and I thank those officers, members of the public and the people that are viewing online and the YouTube channel for attending.